Now you will watch as your world dies a quiet, tranquil death.
I'm sure you guys have played the new TDS event that released a while ago, and that was the Hardcore Rework. I had the expectations of this mode to be TDS's biggest event as it was a main game mode and a major development in the storyline. I was finally able to play through the mode, and while the main story wasn't too interesting, the logs show a different story. It's time to dive into the Hardcore Rework's lore. Because of you guys surprisingly liking the TDS video, I decided to return, especially since this update was going to be really important. There are some things I forgot to mention, like the Awakened Fallen King, in which at the end I'll quickly explain what I think happened during Fallen mode. But anyway, it's time to look at the game mode. This story takes place after the final act, where we see new lands, statues, and buildings. This is presumed to be the Void. Voidcaster sings a tune, and this song will be a bit important later on. It is until she stops her singing and frees all of the soldiers from their slumber when she realizes we're in the realm. The reason why we are in the Void is because Professor V is studying how these Void rifts are forming. I'm guessing that what they're trying to do is try to fix the rift problem to make sure the realm doesn't collapse. There's a lot of enemies to talk about, including maps, and in this mode there's a lot of back and forth in terms of the story. But I think it's best to start off with the logbooks. There are a ton of these logbooks, and while many explain the enemy's origins, there is one that explains the Void. I'll go through the other enemies' logbooks later. The Void existed even before the old world had a name. It is nothing. It's categorized as not a place or person, but is felt when there is nothing. There's a lot more details about how the Void works in places, but the most important piece about the Void is the flora, a type of plant that flourishes in the lands. The Void isn't filled with beasts or entities, but imagine it as a garden. EXO and 2X found out about the Void, and they feared it, and so they decided to seal it under the surface, yet the Void was still waiting for something. At an unknown time, the Voidcaster was born in the Void. When EXO found out, he asked for Voidcaster to help in his war against 2X. Where in return, the Void can claim the lands of the surface. Voidcaster created the Void Reavers while EXO enhanced them. Once EXO got sealed into the cube, the Voidcaster and her army went back to the one place 2X would not go, which is the Void. And they remained sealed until now. Now, I was led to believe that only 2 gods existed in the beginning, but now there's 3. I do consider Voidcaster a god because she can't die. She can be killed, but not forever because she will always come back by the Void. Now, the reason why I tell you this story is to give you a basic understanding of the Void, because a lot of details about these maps are connected to the old world. The first map in this mode is the Wretched Front. This map is the canon map where we fight the Void. This map has a lot of details around here. It has a gate releasing all the enemies with swords and banners, and destroyed structures and vehicles scattered around. But just because it's the only place the events occurred in, doesn't mean there's nothing to talk about in the others. Outskirts Commune is somewhat different. It's not really filled with war or destruction, but more of a society. Even the name suggests that this place is on the outer edges of a city. However, even if they were on the edges of the old world, their landscape got heavily damaged and infected by the flora. Now, Wrecked Battlefield isn't really a special map since it's been here for years, it's just an ancient field. The last map I want to talk about though is the Unknown Garden. This map looks like a garden inside of the Void, probably where Voidcaster was born. Out of these maps, I think Outskirts Commune is the most interesting because it shows a more realistic lifestyle than the citizens have in the old world. Both Lord EXO and 2X have their own statues, with EXO's statue being stone and 2X being wood. It shows the citizens' perspectives on these 2 gods. Whether they worshipped both, or thought that one was superior, this is what the citizens saw and believed. The enemies in this mode are very interesting, because while you may think that the Voidcaster created all of them, they're not really from the void. Well, at least most of them. These enemies are from their respective realms, but their own worlds were taken over by the void, and now these enemies who fell victim to it are being forced into the life of the void or fully accepting their life. Now, when did these realms collapse? One thing you must know is that after the death of the Riftwalker during the Null and Void event, the meta, the string holding all the realms together, is now unprotected and broken. And with even the smallest of cracks, the void was able to plague its flora into other realms. This was all done in the span of a couple of months, starting at the death of the Riftwalker where they gained access to invade other worlds. I was a bit suspicious on guessing if these enemies were at least existing during the times of Lord Exo's war, but in all of these logbooks, these enemies have never fought in the war of the old world, only the ones that Voidcaster herself created. Voidcaster surprisingly did not create the Void Swordmaster. She found him. He's a remnant of the old world who had already made a name for himself. The Slow King sat in the ruins of their realm after trying to save their people. And the last piece of evidence to prove this is the logbook of the soul. In this case, the Void consumed many realms before their battle with TDS, where there were once countless realms. The Void devoured nearly all of them in the short span of time. It actually explains a lot of enemies being in the battlefield against us. Because of their fallen realms due to the Void, they have their own decisions to let go or become something different, like the Slow King turning into a Void Keeper. Now, I could make an entire video about what you could be if you were a victim to the Void, but there's a lot of branches that, while are cool to talk about, aren't really that important to the lore. What I am going to talk about is Void Gems. Void Gems are crystals that are first seen in the few enemies like the Swift. They are presumably the currency you collect when you play in hardcore. The interesting thing about these Void Gems isn't just about the currency themselves, but what they're used for. Now, the main tower that uses strong tech is the Accelerator, and its maxed upgrade is called Vessel of Infinite Destruction. The thing is that hardcore mode has happened only once, and that is the rework. So this is actually the first time that TDS has interacted with the Void. So if the Accelerator's power source is really from the Void, when did we get it? Well, the thing is that this isn't actually from the Void, but a powerful plasma beam. The Accelerator has lived to fight for years with TDS, including in the fight where even the Null Accelerator appeared in the Null and Void event. He was also seen during the final act, so it would be more logical that over time with TDS, they would gain plasma guns and laser beams that not necessarily is from the Void, but an artificial creation to match with their technology. That's about it for the hardcore lore, at least what I have found at the most. I really wanted this video to be a bit longer, but with the info I've found, there isn't a need to make it super lengthy. But before I do end the video, I do have some things to add about the TDS video, specifically about the God Cube. If you haven't watched the video, I said I didn't know how or why the God Cube shattered. However, now I learned some new information during the TDS event Null and Void.
The cube should have remained shattered.
This makes it sound like the Riftwalker or some other entity intentionally destroyed the cube because of this threat. It could have been that it had shattered unknowingly and they actually wanted to keep it that way, or they intentionally shattered it themselves and had it through other dimensions, which sounds more reasonable than it mysteriously breaking. Another thing is the Fallen game mode and what really happened during it. This is because we have to take Hidden Wave into account. I do believe everything about Fallen mode happened except for when the Fallen King appeared. I think that in the final battle he would have used the God Shard they found onto himself to fight TDS. I mean, in the main game we see that the Fallen King seemed to have died and it would have been a waste if he didn't use the shard at this time. Which means that this Fallen King is probably supposed to be the boss for the mode, but in the lore, the true boss was the Awakened Fallen King, the version where the Fallen King absorbed the shard. And this is where I'm ending this video. I'm going to actually focus on videos but also life for a bit, so don't look away. Little shout out to my artist for making the thumbnail, and thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.